Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. I'm Jer Stays. On today's show, Amazon is taking over a large part of the state fairgrounds for a new facility. A historic armory on the riverfront has plans for a new lease on life. Up in Roseville, a historic church has begun to come down. A Chevy is a surprise as the fastest selling new vehicle in the country. And Fletcher Sharpe joins us to talk about the Big Ten, plus what's happening in soccer with local teams Detroit City FC and the Michigan Stars. Let's just dive right in, shall we? It looks like Amazon is coming to the city of Detroit with a new 4-story distribution center on a 70-plus acre portion of the sprawling State Fairground site at 8 Mile and Woodward. It would be a 3.8 million square foot facility with more than 1,200 new full-time jobs created, according to Mayor Mike Duggan. The $400 million project will be privately financed without the use of tax breaks or other financial incentives. I note that this is a rarity for projects of this size in the city of Detroit. Under the terms of the proposed deal, the development team will pay $9 million for the land based on a recent appraisal, and they will also pay for a new transit center. More on that in a bit. City officials say that a purchase agreement will be presented to City Council in September after their summer recess. Half the site would be occupied by Amazon, and the remaining 70 acres of the deal would be home to businesses like auto parts suppliers. The developers are Hillwood Investment Properties and the Sterling Group. An interesting sidebar, Hillwood is the international development company of the Perot family, connected to former presidential candidate Ross Perot. The distribution facility is also different than many of Amazon's sprawling projects. Mayor Duggan specifically pointed out that he did not want to give up the whole footprint of the property to Amazon, so they bent on having a one-floor project as they typically do in the suburbs and made it a 4-story one for a more urban-centric design. Now, let's also talk about that transit center. Currently, the State Fairgrounds bus turnaround serves 30,000 riders a week on 9 routes at an antiquated, decrepit series of bus shelters sprawled across Woodward. And I'm not sure if you've lived unless you've played Frogger across 10 lanes of traffic at that corner to transfer buses. To help with this, a new $7 million indoor-outdoor transit center will be built with both heat and air conditioning in the middle of the property. The city says there will be pedestrian connections to the Meyer Plaza, the new developments at the State Fairground that are happening on other parts of the property, so think that Magic Johnson deal, as well as Woodward and State Fair avenues. Construction on both these projects is planned to start in October, and everything's supposed to open up in the middle of 2022. I will put a link to the plans in the show notes. One of Detroit's more interesting buildings from the 1930s may have a new lease on life. There's a $36.5 million proposal from the Parade Company to rehab the R. Thornton Broadhead Armory. That's at 7600 East Jefferson, just east of the Belle Isle Bridge. Currently, the nonprofit that puts on the Thanksgiving Parade, the Ford Fireworks, and other events is based in an out-of-the-way industrial corner on Mount Elliott near I-94. The group says it's not conducive for attracting school tours and other events, and it'd be rather expensive to repair the building. The plan for the rehab calls for saving the front of the armory and rebuilding the back with a new modern design that allows for higher ceilings and more amenities. It would also connect it to the Riverwalk, which piece by piece has been pulling together Belle Isle and downtown Detroit. The footprint of the building would basically double. The back part of the structure would be demolished to make way for new construction, but the Parade Company says they plan to save pieces of the old facade for the new addition. Use as a public event space wouldn't be out of its historical norm. The Armory was used as a dance hall for mixers and civic events, as well as a drill and training space for the Navy and Marines. HistoricDetroit.org says that when the Armory closed in 2004, it was home to the largest collection of federally funded Depression-era artwork of any Michigan building. However, be cautious about your hopes on what's left. They say that the building has been hit hard by scrappers and vandals since that time. Critics say it would be best to restore the whole building, but I'll say here, considering the amount of time this place has been vacant, there is a high chance this deal is going to happen pretty close to how it stands. Of course, I'll put a link to the plans in the show notes. There is a hearing Wednesday in front of Detroit's Historic District Commission. From one historic building being saved to another being razed. Over in Roseville, the Macomb Daily reports that demolition work has begun at the site of Aaron Presbyterian Church. That's on Gratiot Avenue at Wallace Streets. There has been a congregation there since 1861, and the now former building was built in 1930. The church closed 3 years ago, and the city moved quickly in recent months to deem the building a nuisance and get it demolished, as reportedly it had boarded windows and was in disrepair. It was purchased by real estate developer Gratiot STA in Southfield for $750,000 in 2017. But to this day, there are no firm plans for its redevelopment. This is the second historic church out that way, on its way to the dustbin. Sacred Heart Church, a mile down the road, will be demolished shortly for a self-storage facility. Detroit-based General Motors has a win at the top of the sales charts. The new Chevy Trailblazer is the fastest-selling new vehicle in the country, says new data from iSeeCars.com that covers March through June of this year. After a production pause in South Korea due to COVID-19, it seems as if buyers can't get enough of the SUV that starts at a price under $20,000. The new Trailblazers are staying on dealer lots for a scant 19 days, which is a very short amount of time in the automotive world. All of the rest of the top 5 most in-demand new cars are foreign brands, including the Kia Telluride and Seltos, Honda CR-V Hybrid, and the Hyundai Palisade. Of those, only the Kia Telluride and the Honda CR-V Hybrids are assembled in the United States. The inexpensive SUV form factor seems to be a hit across the board, with the Trailblazer doubling its sales goals. And if you think the Trailblazer might be a name you've heard of, you're not going crazy. It is a relaunch of a badge discontinued in 2009. It's important to note, however, that demand for new and used vehicles is significantly down due to the effects of coronavirus. The number of days it takes new cars to sell has increased by more than 2/3 as the economy has slowed and millions of Americans have lost their jobs or seen significant cuts in income. One quick thing before we get to Fletcher. Remember to become a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. Your listener support means the world to us and has helped us make it through these pandemic times. It's crucial, and even at a few bucks a month, it makes a big difference. And you get stickers, and we've got bourbon glasses. It's great. Join us at patreon.com/dailydetroit, and thank you. Joining me, as always, for all things sports ball, Fletcher Sharpe. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me again.
All right. The biggest news that I think that we have to talk about as of this recording time, the Universal report is that the fall season for the Big Ten, that's kaput. So no football for U of M, MSU, and a bunch of others.
Honestly, I'm not that surprised. For those who don't really follow college football like that, normally right now they'd be in the middle of spring training, kind of getting to their summer two-a-days, where like they'd be putting the pads on and kind of hitting, but like lightly. It's like when you look at those football movies and you see them like in their practice jerseys just laying each other out in like the hot weather, it'd be during this time. And the players have not put pads on yet.
Okay.
So the season is supposed to start in like a few weeks or so. If you're not actually hitting and you just go out there and just start hitting, like if you don't ramp up to like practice hitting, practice. Now I'm used to getting hit. My body understands how it's going to feel. And you just go out there and play against someone else who's trying to take your head off, your body's going to react very poorly to it. And yeah, I understand that, yes, these are college football players who've been playing football for most of their life. But taking even a week off of a sport and then coming back to it, your body just feels different. So imagine taking like almost, I don't know, 2/3 of a year off to come back and like start, instead of hitting like your teammate, hitting like your locker mate, hitting your roommate, you're hitting some guy from a rival school who wants to literally tear your head off. Like people are going to get seriously hurt. Timing's going to be off.
Well, let's get to that, because one of the things, since this is so early in the process as you're outlining, Jim Harbaugh has come out already saying that they really want to play, that he feels like he has the coronavirus COVID thing under control. And I mean, obviously fear of COVID and mass spread is a big reason why you're seeing these sports cancellations. His voice is very loud and very prominent because of the school he works at, but also that's an interesting take.
Totally tongue in cheek. I have to stress this is a joke. He should be happy they're not playing, so it's not a chance for Ohio State to beat him yet again. It's a chance for him to keep his job, because I'm sure if he loses to them again, they're going to fire him. So you can't lose to them if you don't play them. But in all seriousness, yeah, sure, you might have it under control. Michigan might have it under control. University of Michigan's football team might be great.
Well, and they have tons of resources there, right? Like Ann Arbor is only second to like an Ivy League school as far as having money to dive into.
Right. University of Michigan might have it under control, but Iowa might not, or Indiana might not, or Wisconsin might not, or Illinois might not. So when you go to travel to their university and play, and before you arrive to play your game, it's like, oh, we have a problem. 4 or 5 players tested positive. Then what? What happens then?
We've learned from the MLB experience that, Ann Arbor may be able to, and Jim Harbaugh may, from his view, be correct, saying, well, he doesn't have a problem. The larger issue is that what we've learned from sports so far is that once you break the bubble, things go crazy.
Totally. And honestly, to the point I was making, using soccer as a medium, because I am well-versed in soccer as well, UEFA Champions League is currently going on. And Atletico Madrid, a team that had very little COVID turnover, very little COVID numbers at all during the entire pandemic has been happening. They leave to go play a game in Germany, and as they arrive in Germany, they have 2 positive COVID cases. They pop up. So, what do you do then? Do you just exclude those players and they can't play? What about the times they spent around the other teammates? So, I understand, yes, you might have it under control and you're, perfect area where you have it. If they come to Ann Arbor, you're good. But if you have to travel to go anywhere, that's a problem. That's a problem you cannot control. You can't control what happens in East Lansing or what happens in Champaign or Bloomington or except that you can't control those things. So the fact that he's well, we have it under control, why don't everyone else, is a little short-sighted, and I'd love to say a surprise from him, but he tends to make a lot of those comments where if it benefits them, it's fine, but if it benefits nobody else, whatever. And I have friends who played college football who are the kids should play definitely. Playing college sports keeps these kids off the streets, keeps them from doing other things. And I understand that, and I empathize. I used to coach youth league football, and the kids who would play played great. The kids who would drop out normally got into some bad stuff. And I understand that. I'm not saying I feel bad for those people. But also, is it really worth you going out there to go play and getting sick and potentially dying or carrying this disease to your family? I know being young makes you think you're invincible, and I get it as well. But this is not the time for that.
Well, regardless, it seems like there's still a group of Americans who still don't have the same. We don't agree as a country about how severe this situation really is. I mean, I need to keep moving though. Over to sports that are playing. Detroit City FC has a match coming up.
That's right. They play this weekend, the 15th. Still no fans. This weekend, the 15th, against frenemy Chattanooga FC. If Detroit City is a number 1 attendance team in lower league soccer, Chattanooga FC is number 2, very close behind them. Normally, this would be a fun game because the fans would be able to interact with each other. Chattanooga travels well. Without that, though, it's still going to be a pretty good game. Chattanooga has a really good history when they were in the NPSL with Detroit City of having a bunch of winning seasons in a row. However, their first game of the fall session was against another Michigan team, Michigan Stars, the other professional Michigan team in NISA, and they lost 2-1 behind goals from Kyle Newell and former Detroit City player and former Grasshopper Zurich player, Steven Junkai, who scored a goal in the 87th minute to give them the definitive lead. So just based off what we've seen with Detroit City FC in the NISA Showcase Cup, they should be fine. I know Chattanooga is a professional team with money putting into their players, and FC Buffalo and Cleveland SC are not. But if they're moving the way they're supposed to be moving and they look to be in sync enough, it should not really matter.
We don't normally get into this, but Michigan Stars also had a match. We've had some thought around the fact that we really do have two teams in Metro Detroit. So what happened with the Stars over the weekend?
Yeah, they played Chattanooga in Chattanooga's first game. They won 2-1. You could tell they're a professional team just by how they were carrying themselves and moving, but they were really sloppy. There's been some reports that they started practicing a bit earlier than they were supposed to. So if those are true, I don't really know why they look as sloppy as they do. But they got the win, and that's really all that matters at this point. They do have some exciting players. As I mentioned before, they have Steven Junkai, who used to play for Detroit City FC. He also played for Grasshopper Zurich in Switzerland. He has some professional glamour to him. Really talented player. They also have one of my favorite keepers, and I think one of the best goalkeepers in the state of Michigan, Tatinda Mikruva, who has played in the AFCON, Africa Cup of Nations, which is essentially like the World Cup only for African teams to determine who goes to the actual World Cup. So if you're playing in there, I'm not really sure how you ended up in like Sterling Heights, Michigan, but I'm happy he's here because now I get to watch him a lot easier. Michigan Stars aren't a pushover. They used to be a pushover team. They used to be not very good. They got a very rich owner who came and gave them a bunch of money to get better. And while they're not like world beaters, they're not the best team you'll ever watch. They're solid enough to keep your interest. Actually, Detroit travels to play them next weekend, the 22nd. So that should be a pretty interesting game back and forth, especially now that since there are two pro teams and one of them is trying to say that we're not the other pro team, being the Stars, there should be some fireworks on the field. So that should be very exciting to watch.
Well, I am looking forward to those games and also getting all the inside information from you, Fletch. Fletcher Sharpe, you can follow him on Twitter at SaintFDW. Good to talk to you as always, sir.
Thanks for having me again.
All right, that is it for your Daily Detroit. If you have feedback on the show, a story tip, or want to ask a question, our listener line is 313-789-3211. That's 313-789-3211. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Jer Stays. Don't forget your mask, take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.